Hi there, and thanks for visiting. This is Jennifer McGuire. So today I have several ideas for you for creating inside-out cards. Those are cards where the pattern or stamping on the front of the card is extended to the inside. Now, what's special about today's cards is that there's actually a window that's a shaker window that shows through the inside. However, if you don't like shaker cards, don't worry. You can do this without the shaker elements. And actually, one of my cards is non-shaker, so you can see how that would work. This is an excellent technique that works with coordinating dies or standalone dies. So you can probably do this with things that you have on hand. So I have multiple examples just to demonstrate that. Another thing that I like about this technique is it's a great way to use up any leftover plastic that you have from packaging. All right, let's get started with this example, where the floral image extends to the inside of the card. For this card, I'm using the new Gina K Designs Love at All Times stamp set and coordinating die set. What's really unique about this set is you've got that large outline image there on the bottom. Then you can see those solid images. Those can be stamped on top of the outline to color it in, or you can use them separately. So for my window card, I'll be using that large outline image, but only cutting out that one flower die that you see laying on top of it. But it's nice that the set offers many options and ways to use it. I also have a bonus image using one of the solid flowers that I'll share with you too. Okay, so I have a piece of white cardstock. I chose to use Brutus Monroe's Not Your Mama's cardstock, but any heavyweight white cardstock would work. And I'm using my Misty stamping tool just because it's handy. I have an anti-static powder tool that I'm using on my cardstock. Then I'm stamping the outline image right in the center with VersaMark Ink and adding Gina K Detail White embossing powder. After heat setting it, I'll have a white heat embossed image that you won't see much, but we're about to do some embossed resist so we can add some color to the background. I also just wanted to show you the blending brushes that I'm using in today's video. These are from Gina K Designs, and you can see I've been using them a lot, but off screen just to make sure I was happy with the results before I shared them. Well, the thing that I really like about the Gina K brushes is this stand, an excellent stand. It's very sturdy, it's not wobbly, it's easy to pop the brushes in and out, and it holds many brushes. I also like that the brushes are white and the nice size. They all are the same size. And there are clips that you can put on them for each of the colors. I just like that this can sit on my desk and it can get pushed around and I don't have to worry about all the brushes falling out. They'll stay in there nicely and it has this beautiful white and colorful look to it. So I wanted to give you a look at this because many people were asking, but you could use whatever inking tool you prefer for today's technique. I'm using my Waffle Flower Water Media Mat. That's my favorite surface to blend on because it kind of holds your paper still and you can put the excess ink onto the white surface and then pick it up and reapply it, which you'll see me do. I'm using Gina K Design inks because the colors are beautiful and I love how they blend, but you could use absolutely any inks you want for this. I'm starting with key lime and then I'll add some Lucky Clover, Ocean Mist, and then Blue Lagoon, working from green to blue on the other end. When I ink up with my blending brush, I first put my blending brush on the ink pad, dab it off onto my white work surface, and then blend onto my paper. That way I get the excess ink off of my brush before bringing it to the paper. I then can go and pick up some of that excess ink that I put on my work surface and bring it to the paper so less goes to waste. But you can see here how I'm able to easily blend these. I really like the size of these blending brushes, but use whatever is most comfortable for you. My favorite tip for blending colors is to overlap the colors pretty generously. You want the greens and blues to overlap, which helps with getting a nice blend. And then I use a dry cloth to buff off the extra ink from the white heat embossing. Okay, next I'm putting the sticky mat into my Misty stamping tool here. This is just sticky and will hold my cardstock here as we do additional stamping. So I found this little grid kind of image from the same stamp set from Gina K, and I thought it'd be fun to put in the background just for some added interest. I'm first stamping it with a white pigment ink. Unfortunately, my white pigment ink needs to be re-inked, so I'm having to stamp it a few times to get it to show up. But once I'm done, I'm moving my sticky mat just a little bit, just a hair up and over, just a little. and then stamping the same image with key lime ink. So I get this overlap of color and white for this grid up here in the top corner. So I'll do the same thing kind of over to the left, and this time I will stamp first with my Lucky Clover green since my stamp is clean here. And then once I'm done with that, I will clean my stamp, shift my sticky mat up and over just a little bit to offset just a small amount, and then stamp with the white pigment ink just to give that offset look. And then I'll repeat that in the bottom right corner with the Blue Lagoon ink and white pigment ink. After I heat set that so it doesn't smear, we can go ahead and do our die cut window. I'm using that small coordinating die flower, so this will cut right in the top center of our panel. Next, I need to cut a window in the front of my note card. So I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card. I'm centering this on the front, just holding it there, not gluing it, and then popping that same die right into the opening. It pops in kind of like a puzzle piece. And then I'll press the tape to hold it there. Then I'll run this through my die cut machine, and this will cut a window in the same spot on my note card so that when I glue my inked piece to the front, the windows will line up. That's a really helpful trick, and I'll be doing that a lot in this video. Now I want to build up some dimensions, some walls to this window so that it can be a shaker window. So this is my favorite way to do this. I like to use cardstock to build up the layers. So I have 3 pieces of white cardstock, cut slightly smaller than our inked background. I'm holding one of those behind our inked piece, kind of centering it up back there. Then I'll flip it over and I'll kind of trace some of the corners of my window onto the white. This is one way to do it. I'll show you another way later. Once I have those traced in there, I'll take the die and line it up with my pencil marks. And then I will take my next white cardstock piece, same size, and I'll put it behind it. Then I'll run this through my die cut machine together. It will cut through one window, but not that second layer. So you'll see there's actually an impression in the second layer. And now I can pop the die into that impression, grab my other white piece of cardstock and run that through too. So what I'm doing is creating 3 pieces of white cardstock that have a window in the same position as our inked front panel. This will allow me to form the walls for our shaker window. You could instead use craft foam for that dimension in the walls, but I find the results are better when I build up layers of cardstock. So here, I'll show you how this comes together. So I have these layers of white cardstock, all the same size, all with that window cut in the same spot. I put liquid adhesive on it, and then I kind of tap my fingers into the liquid adhesive around the window edge. That way the adhesive gets right up against the edge of the cardstock but won't ooze out, so it'll stay nice and clean. I then will glue this to one of my other white cardstock pieces. So I'm starting to form the walls for my shaker window. I'm telling you, I've just found the best results with this way, but you could do your shaker window however you want. Once this is lined up, I'll do the same thing with the next piece. And it looks like I actually did 4 layers to the wall. I use inexpensive white cardstock for this since nobody's ever going to see it. I just make sure that it's heavyweight so that my walls get tall enough for the little gems to shake around inside. I also like to press down with my bone folder afterwards to make sure that each of the layers are tight up against each other, especially around that window in the center. We don't want any of our gems to get stuck between the layers. So once I have those 4 white pieces glued together, I can add a piece of acetate. Now you can use any acetate you want. I'm using some leftover clear packaging that I had from a stamp set. I like to save that and recycle them in my cards, and I just look for the clearest packaging I can find so my window is nice and clear. You can see the piece there on the top left. I then am putting that adhesive around the window, and I'll lay my acetate right onto it. Now I have our inked piece. The piece that I'm putting glue on right now is the inked piece. That would be the front of our card. Putting adhesive around the window, kind of smoothing it out so it gets right up against the cut edge of the die cut, and place this on top. So now we have our inked front of the card, acetate, and then 4 layers of cardstock forming the walls to our shaker window. Now for the fun part, it's adding our little shaker goodies on the inside. For this one, I used some iridescent clear gemstones from Gina K Designs, and I'm flipping them so that the front of the gems will show on the front of the card. I also grabbed some really chunky iridescent glitter and put some of that in the inside too. These little lightweight glitter pieces will probably stick to the window a little bit due to static. I like that, but if you don't like that, what you'll want to do is use a bounce dryer sheet or something inside of the window first to remove that static. But I like when the glitter sticks to it so it stays kind of front and center. After putting some liquid adhesive around the window opening, I put my second piece of acetate over it. So now we have a see-through shaker window. So it'll show through to the inside of the card. So I like to press that down with my bone folder so we have a nice seal there. And there we have the front of our shaker card. Now all we have to do is glue it onto the front of our card. We already have our window cut in the same spot. And again, I like to put that adhesive right up against the edge. I'm using liquid adhesive more and more these days because it is so strong. It's more economical and it allows you to move a little bit till it dries. Now I have the flower die cut. I'm putting adhesive on the back of it. I'll line it up with the window and then close my card, and now it's adhered on the inside of the card, lined up with the window. So this allows your stamping and inking on the outside of the card to be extended to the inside. To finish off the card, I added a love die cut. It's actually cut with black cardstock, and then I used the shadow die to cut from white and glued those together and onto our card. I also white heat embossed Your Kind on black cardstock and added that below the die cut word. I also added some gemstones to the outside on our inking just to kind of tie in with the shaker bits that we have on the inside. So with this fun card design, not only does your stamping extend from the outside to the inside of the card, but you have that clear shaker window, which adds some fun to it. This is a fun technique to do with any stamps and coordinating dies. Now, by the way, the love and stamps that you see me use here, I'll show you what that's from in just a moment. But here's a bonus card. I just had all the stuff out, so I decided to use it. I used the solid floral image there for the blue and green flower. And then I used the outline kind of for a backdrop. I stamped it in a really light pool colored ink. And then I added the sentiment. Super quick card, and I actually used my leftover white die cuts behind our stamped flower here for dimension. So I kept those from going to waste too. So while you got your supplies out, you might as well make a second one. Okay, let's do our next example. This one is fun because you can use basic circle dies and then any stencils, stamps, or background techniques you want. I also like that this is a great way to do a focal point for special sentiments and have one on the inside and the outside. Now for this card, I'm using a really special bundle from Gina K Designs called Little Love Bundle. It's been out for a month or so and I'm excited to finally get to use it. So what's really special about the set is you have these 3 layering stencils that allow you to create a beautiful background, and you can make it a 1-layer card if you wanted. Or you can use the coordinating dies to cut out some of the images and pop them up, or to add more images on top. Then there is that magnificent love die and the shadow die, and that's what I used on the previous example, and I'll use it a few times in this video. And finally, you have the stamp set that coordinates. So you have the little sentiments that you can put with the word love, and then also the little details that you can stamp onto your flowers to add even more to your background. When I do stenciling like this, I like to use the corner of my media mat. It just allows me to line things up easier. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but I do have a piece of white cardstock underneath the stencil. So I've got the stencil right in the corner, my cardstock is underneath it right in the corner, and we can start inking. I again am using the Gina K brushes and inks. This is Peach Bellini, one of my all-time favorite colors. And I'm making the large flowers this peach color. I'm doing a light amount, but a little bit heavier towards the center. Now there are other flowers that are open on the stencil, and I want to do those in yellow. That's why I have that extra piece of cardstock there to mask the others off. There's no sense cutting masks when you can just put a piece of cardstock there to block it out. All right, so now I'm using sweet corn to add some yellow to those smaller flowers. To make my larger flowers stand out, I'm using a little bit of a darker coral reef color and kind of dabbing it right into the center of our peach flowers. This will make a big difference in the final result. All right, now I come in with the next stencil. It's very easy to line up, but even easier if you put it into the corner of something like a mat like this, or even in the corner of your Misty. Now over this entire stencil, I'm putting key lime ink in a very light amount of it. I wanted the flowers to stand out more than the leaves. Then I'm coming in with a Ocean Mist from Gina K Designs and just putting a little bit of that aqua color on these bigger leaves, just for a bit of variation. I then can remove that second stencil and add the third stencil. Over the leaf portion, I'll do Lucky Clover Green. And in the flower centers, I will do Sweet Mango for both the yellow and the peach flowers. If you want to save time, you can do the same color over the entire stencil for the 3 different layers. But by picking and choosing different areas to do different colors, you bring more color into the final result, and it really makes a big difference. All right, so there we have our fun background. And then I'm using some of the little stamp images that's in that small stamp set to add some detail, especially to the larger flowers. I will then trim that down to be about 4 by 5 1/4, and I'll save those extra pieces for another card. Next, I have 2 circle dies that are very close in size. I'm first cutting with the smaller one in the top center of our inked panel. I then will take the slightly larger circle die and line it up around the one we just cut. I'll save that smaller one for a little bit later in the card. So this will cut just a little bit more off of that window in the front of our card. Next, I have a top folding 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch note card. At first, I traced the circle there to know where to die cut, but you want to know a better way to do this? Let me show you. It's a little bit different than before. I am just going to hold my inked panel centered on the front of our note card. Then I will take the same larger circle die, pop it in place, and tape that down, and run this entire thing through my die cut machine. That'll cut that window in the front of your note card. Now for the dimension and walls, I have 3 pieces of white cardstock that's slightly smaller than our inked piece. Held it right in the center. This time I'm popping the large circle die right into the opening and running both layers through together. Then I will continue to do that with the other pieces. So we have 3 white cardstock pieces that will all have a circle right there on the top center. These will form the walls of our shaker window. Again, instead of these layers of cardstock, you could instead die cut a piece of craft foam, or you could use foam tape, but this gives the best results. Okay, let's form our shaker window. This piece right here is the inked piece upside down, so it's the front of my card. I put some adhesive around the window, and I'm putting a piece of scrap acetate, just some recycled plastic, right up against it. I then will add those 3 additional layers behind it, each time using liquid adhesive to make sure I seal off the sides of that circle die cut window, and we have nice strong walls to our shaker window. So here I'm just layering each of those together. Once I'm done with that, I can add all of my little shaker bits to it. This time I added some gold confetti that I found in my stash, just a few in there. You don't want to do too much because you're going to see part of the pattern through the window and you don't want to block it off. Now I'm putting liquid adhesive around the window, and I have my second piece of scrap plastic that I'll put on the back, so we have our see-through shaker window. Now we can glue this right onto the front of our note card. Remember, our note card already has the circle die cut in it, and it'll line up nicely. I put adhesive on the back of that extra circle piece, and I'm lining it up centered in the window, and then I'll flip it and close it so that the circle is glued to the inside of the card and it lines up with the window. So there's a little bit of a coral color trim through the window, which gives it nice definition. I'm including a sentiment on the front and inside of this card, and I'm using the new Gina K Designs Heartfelt Bouquet stamp set. I'll use this stamp set again later in this video. I like that it has those large hello and friend, but also lots of sentiments perfect for sentiment strips, which I need for this card. So I white heat embossed 2 sentiment strips on black cardstock. I have a red heart die cut that I'm gluing right onto the center of the window on the front. And then on top of that, I'll add one of my sentiment strips. Now the glue from that will show through to the other side. So I'm going to turn my card inside out here and glue another heart right there lining up so you don't see that adhesive. You'll see a little adhesive from the black strip, but not much since those shaker goodies are in there. And then I have a third heart that I'll line up, close my card, and now I have a heart on the inside. All those hearts will line up nicely. Then finally, I'll take that other sentiment strip and glue it on the inside of the card, lined up with the black sentiment strip on the outside, and that's an additional message. One of my most asked questions is, what do I do on the inside of the cards to make it match? Well, this technique is for you if that's something that you want to do. I usually leave the inside of my cards blank so I can write a personal message. But this is really fun because there's more interest on the inside and plenty of room to write a personal message underneath it. This is probably my favorite of the different cards I make today because it can be done with any stamped or inked background in circle dies, square dies, rectangle dies, heart dies, whatever you have. Now I created another one that's very similar. Same technique, just a different size and a heart opening instead of a circle. This card is 5.5 by 5.5. And I used heart dies that I'll show you later in this video. Again, I have that see-through shaker window put together in the exact same way as the last one, but this time with hearts. So this shows you that you can use any size card, any size windows, whatever you want. You could even make it a trifold card if you want to have more room to write a personal message on the inside. Okay, my next example doesn't have a shaker window. So if you're one of those who doesn't like to do shaker cards, this one's definitely easier, but it still has that window that allows the pattern to continue from the outside of the card to the inside. And this card is a 5 by 7 card. For this, I'm using this incredible Gina K Designs Beautiful Wings stamp set. I am a sucker for dragonflies and butterflies, and this is just a beautiful set with large images. So I used quite a few of these to create our background. The other nice thing is the coordinating die set for this cuts out all of the different images. So you can really have a lot of fun building up a background with this, but I only use the coordinating die for the large butterfly for this card. Now I'm going to share with you a secret, but you have to promise me you won't tell anybody this secret because this is one of my lazy ways to do ink blending. So this is just between you and I. Don't tell anyone. But when I want to do a bold background with lots of similar color, I start with the colored cardstock instead of white. It makes ink blending so much easier. So here I have a piece of blue cardstock, slightly smaller than 5 by 7. And I put that main large butterfly like front and top center on that piece. And I'm arranging the other images around it. I will then stamp these with VersaMark ink and white heat emboss them. I'll continue to do this until the entire front of the card has these white heat embossed images. So now for that secret, I have my blue cardstock and I'm putting purple towards the bottom. So this is, I believe, Wild Wisteria, and I'm using my blending tool, again, kind of taking the excess ink off onto the work surface and dragging it kind of onto my paper and just letting it blend into that blue there towards the middle. Now I decided I wanted a little more purple down there on the bottom, so I came in with lovely lavender and added a bit of that just to pull the purple a little bit higher. Then on the other side, I'll rotate this, I'll put some ocean mist. But there is that gap kind of around that large butterfly where I'm just leaving the blue cardstock to show through. By starting with the colored cardstock, you can spend a lot less time in ink building up that color. So that's a secret, don't tell anyone. Okay, now I've got one of the little branch images from the stamp set that I'm just stamping repeatedly over the background using the same colors of ink that I used to do the blending. This just gives a little tone-on-tone interest around our inking and around our heat embossed images. Every once in a while, I'll just take my cloth and wipe the excess ink off of the white embossing. Okay, once I'm done with all of that stamping, I'll use that large butterfly die to cut out that main butterfly. Again, you can see how it's towards the top center. Now, you could do this just like the others and create a shaker window. This time, I'm just doing a window, so there's no shaker to it. There, I cut the butterfly right into the front of our note card. This note card is 5 by 7. But I didn't build up any layers for in between because I'm not doing that shaker element. Okay, so on the back of our inked piece, I put some adhesive around the window, and I'm putting a piece of recycled plastic right across that. Any recycled plastic, even the thin stuff, would work for this, but I went through and tried to pick some of the thicker ones for these windows. And now I'm just gluing it right on the front of our card. So we just have that clear acetate right there in the window, giving a bit of shine. Next, I need to glue the butterfly inside the card to line up with the window. So the way I do that is I put that adhesive on the back of the butterfly, line it up with the window, and close it, just like I've done many times in this video. Now notice I got a big fingerprint there of ink. I'm not giving up on this card. I'm not starting over. Now for a lot of ink like this, I've lately been using my little sanding block, and I can sand away those fingerprints and nobody will ever know. Now this sanding block is from Paper Artsy, and it has been out of stock for a very long time, but apparently it should be back in stock soon. So I will link to it if you do want to check out what it is like. I was able to find one in my stash from a long time ago, and that's the tool that I've been reaching for most when I need to kind of erase some ink lately. Okay, so now let's finish off this card. I thought it'd be fun to have a heart right in the center of the window. So I die cut a white heart and glued it right on the front. Then I have another white heart that will glue on the other side of the window so it looks pretty from the other side too. I finished the card by adding a white heat embossed sentiment on black cardstock and then some of the Gina K gemstones to the background. I like that that catches the light nicely. Then when you open up the card, there's another sentiment there that says praying for you. I like that with this inside out window card technique, you can have a sentiment on the front and on the inside, and the pattern carries from the front to the inside. Now you definitely could have made this a shaker card using the same techniques I showed you with my last examples, but I wanted to include in the video one that wasn't a shaker version for those who prefer not to have it. By the way, the sentiment on this is from one of my longtime favorite Gina K stamp sets that's called On My Mind. Okay, my final example is another shaker window, and this one came together pretty quickly, believe it or not, and it uses a basic shape die for a fun little window. Now again, I'm using that secret where I start with a colored cardstock and add ink to it for blending. Now I wanted to use my Gina K Tranquil Teal ink, and I couldn't find the full-size pad, so I've got my cube here. Whenever I use my cubes, I use this ink stand. That's that thing up there on the top right. It holds your cube for you, so you don't get your fingers all inky holding the cube and getting the brush inked up with it. It's really handy to have if you do a lot of ink blending like this, and I'll show more about it in a video in the future, and I'll have the link below. It's a really cool tool. I recently bought the full-size ink stand too, and I look forward to trying that. Okay, so all I did there was add some Tranquil Teal just around the outside edge, and it looks like we ink blended that whole thing, but we totally cheated and started with colored cardstock. Now for the window on this, I'm using the Gina K Masters Layout 4 die set. I really like these master layout die sets. This is the fourth one, obviously. They all have great basic shapes that can be used for a lot of cards, and always seem to have two dies that are close in size that allow you to create a mat for a shape. Now I used the hearts for that square card I showed you earlier, and I'm using those two banner dies on this one. This time I'm starting with the larger of the two banner dies and cutting right on the top center of our inked background. Then I will use the smaller one that happens to have faux stitching on the inside edge and cut that. So now we have a smaller banner that fits inside of the bigger one. I then have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white note card, and I'll cut that banner window right in the center of that too, using the same process I've showed you a few times in this video. And I will cut 3 pieces of white cardstock with that same window cut in it to form our walls. So I did that off screen, but it's the same process that we've done throughout the video. So on the back of our inked piece, I'm putting adhesive around the window and laying a piece of acetate or plastic right onto it, and that'll form the front of our shaker window. I then have those 3 additional white layers that I'll glue on top of each other to form the walls behind that. So we have the walls of our shaker window. Once all those layers are built up, we can add our little shaker bits on the inside. This time I just used some old little blue beads that I found. I thought they caught the light nicely and matched the card nicely. So you can use anything tiny in here, confetti, glitter, beads, anything, whatever you got on hand. Once you're done adding the little bits inside, you can add your liquid adhesive around the die cut window and then lay your second acetate piece or clear piece on top of that. So there we have formed our shaker window that is see-through. Finally, just glue this right onto the front of our card and those windows will line up nicely. If you don't like using liquid adhesive like this, you could use double-sided adhesive on your cardstocks before you die cut them, and that would form nice walls too. Now we've got that inside banner piece, put adhesive on it, close the card, and then it continues that pattern onto the inside of the card. I finished it off by adding 3 black sentiment strips on the front. That's from the same stamp set that floral image is from, the Heartfelt Bouquet. I also added a few white pearls here and there. On the inside, I added a simple I miss you sentiment. I like that there's room to write a personal message underneath, but that pattern is continued from the outside in on the cards, and you have that fun shaker window. By the way, the I miss you on the inside, that sentiment is from this older Gina K Smiles stamp set. I just wanted a 4th sentiment to add into the card, and the miss you seemed to work perfect. All right, there you have lots of ideas for taking your products and creating unique inside-out cards where your pattern continues from the outside in, and you can have a shaker window to add some fun to it. I hope you'll try this out. If you're interested in any of the products that I do talk about or show here, they are linked below in my YouTube description. And I have a couple other videos that are similar variations of this technique that you can check out, and those are here in the middle. You can head to my blog by going on the top right. There's information there on getting a free stamp set from Gina K too. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up so that YouTube knows you want to see more videos from me. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.